Welcome! This video will guide you on how to use PATH's Excel-based cervical precancer planning tool, including how to input data and view results at the national level. Please review the model fact sheet before using the tool to gain additional information on the background and purpose of the tool. The fact sheet and the tool can be found on the PATH Market Dynamics website, which is linked at the end of this video. When you first open the tool, you will see the Model Overview sheet, which is the first sheet of 11 within the model. On this sheet, you will first see background information about the model. Next, there is a description of what each sheet in the model is used for, which I will review as we go through it. Scrolling down a bit, there is information about data requirements and inputs that will be needed. This is important to read through before you begin using the model, as it will inform you of what data you need to have available to generate results. The tool is designed to aggregate district-level data in order to produce results for national-level planning. The model includes pre-populated baseline data for 14 low and middle-income countries, but there will be instructions later on how to enter data for a different low or middle-income country that does not have pre-populated information. Finally, at the bottom, you can see a list of limitations and key assumptions to keep in mind when you are using this tool, and contact information for PATH staff if you need assistance or have questions. There are two ways you can move through sheets on this model. The first option is to click through the tabs here on the bottom. You'll see that blue tabs are related to screening, green tabs are related to treatment, and dark gray tabs are optional. The second option to move through the tool is to use the yellow links in the header of each tab, which I will do now to move us forward to the Model Flow and Scenarios sheet. This sheet gives insight into what data will be input into the model and how this data is used to calculate the results. At the top here, we have a diagram of the model flow. Starred data in this flowchart represent user inputs, while others are calculations. As you can see, there is a split in the model between HIV-positive women and women who are HIV-negative or of unknown HIV status, as studies have shown that HIV-positive women are more likely to screen positive for cervical precancer than HIV-negative women. Beneath this, there is a table describing the 4 different screening approaches: visual inspection with acetic acid, or VIA, human papillomavirus, or HPV test alone, and 2 approaches for an HPV test followed by a triage test. Finally, at the bottom, there is a second table describing the 5 different treatment scenarios, which examine different potential strategies for treatment equipment deployment. These treatment deployment scenarios range from providing treatment at each location where women are being screened, to having treatment only available in select locations or through mobile outreach. It is important to review and understand each of these approaches and scenarios carefully before using the model. Now we will look at how to use the model to generate results. The Screening Inputs tab has inputs for all of the screening-related data that will control the calculations and results for screening, as well as the source, assumption, and/or note for each model input. The instructions are written out here at the top, so read these carefully, but I will walk you through the process now. Begin by looking at the drop-down menu here. If your country is on this list, you can select it, and if not, select Other Country. For my first example, I will select Uganda. As you can see, once Uganda is selected, the green baseline values and sources will populate with country-specific data. Scroll through these and compare them to any data you have for your country. If you find there is something you want to change, this is an easy process. Say I want to change the percent of women in the selected age range who are screened from 80% to 90% based on new country-specific targets. To do so, I would change the Edit Baseline drop-down answer from No to Yes. Once I do that, the next box under New Value will change to green, indicating that I need an input. I will change this to 90% as an example. If you ever want to change a value back to the baseline, change the edit baseline back from yes to no, and the baseline value will turn green again. As a helpful visual reminder, only data from green cells will be pulled into the model in the end. For my second example, I will go through a country not on the drop-down list. If your country is not on this list, select Other Country from the drop-down menu, and then click on the box here that says Enter Data for New Country, which will take you to a new optional sheet. This Other Country District Data sheet allows the model to be customized to many more low and middle income countries. To begin, select your country from the drop-down list here. For this example, I will select Cambodia. There is then a question that asks if you have data on the number of health facilities at a district level or only at the national level. As you can see, if I choose yes, I will be instructed to enter health facility information by district. If I choose no, indicating that I only have health facility information at the national level, I'm instructed to enter those facility counts in the green boxes here. Finally, following the instructions, I will need to input the district name and population for each district in my country, along with the number of health facilities by type, either nationally or by district. These can be typed in manually or copied and pasted from another Excel document. If your health facility structure does not align to the WHO nomenclature used here, do your best to break the facilities into 5 levels that roughly correspond to the WHO levels. I will not fill this out now, but once this is done, go back to the screening inputs. As you can see, there are now no baseline values, given that we have selected a country without pre-populated data. The next step, then, is to enter data specific to my country in all of the green cells. There are helpful suggestions on data inputs or sources for each input. After all user inputs are set and the green values are accurate to the best of your knowledge, we can proceed on to look at the results. For this example, I will change the country back to Uganda so we can see results from a sample country. The screening dashboard sheet shows you a visual representation of the screening results. On top, we show the total estimated number of women in the eligible screening age range, along with the estimated total number of women screened per year and the number of HIV-positive women screened per year. In the dashboard, we show 6 different graphs of the results, almost all of which compare results across the 4 different screening approaches. These visual representations are a good way to consider the trade-offs of each scenario. For example, in the third graph, we can see here that more women will be referred to treatment using VIA alone or HPV alone than with HPV plus a triage test. However, a large proportion of these VIA or HPV alone screened women are false positives, meaning that the screening result was positive, but the woman does not have cervical precancer. Both true positive and false positive women will be referred to treatment. However, if you add a triage test to the HPV test, the number of false positives is dramatically reduced. If we move over to the fourth graph, you can see the number of cervical precancer cases missed, which is also critical for decision making. In the final 2 graphs, you can see information about the costs associated with each approach. Moving over to the screening data table sheet, this shows similar information in the form of tables, but includes a bit more detail. If you want to look at exact numbers, say to input costs into a budget, or to see in detail the number of women to plan for each year, this is the best place to get that data. Once you have reviewed all of the screening results, think about which of the 4 approaches might make the most sense for your country context. Once you have made an initial decision, move on to the Treatment Inputs tab. You will see that this tab contains a similar layout to the Screening Inputs tab. At the top in yellow here, You will be asked to select your desired screening approach. Based off the results you saw generated in the screening dashboard and screening data tables, select your desired screening method here. I will select HPV plus VIA triage as an example. The screening and treatment components of the model are linked, meaning that the screening approach you choose will impact the number of women treated in the treatment component of the model. As a reminder, you can always come back and adjust this to see what various approaches would look like. Since you have already selected your country, here we see baseline data pre-populated for all treatment-related inputs. If you selected other country, you would need to input your own data here. Similarly to the Screening Inputs tab, review all of the baseline inputs for your country and adjust any as necessary. As a reminder, only the data that is highlighted in a green cell will be used to populate the model. Once these have been reviewed, proceed to the treatment dashboard. The treatment dashboard sheet shows you a visual representation of the treatment results. On top, we show the total estimated number of women who screen positive and need ablation treatment per year, as well as the total for HIV positive women. Each of these 4 graphs shows the variation in results by treatment scenario, with the exception of the breakdown of units of equipment by type graph, which is the same across all 5 scenarios. As an example, here, in the first graph, we can see that more women will be treated in Scenario 1 than in Scenario 4. However, if we move over to the second graph, you can see that the equipment utilization is significantly higher in Scenario 4 than it is in Scenario 1. Additionally, in the bottom right graph, you can see the significantly higher costs associated with Scenario 1 as compared to all other scenarios. Moving over to the treatment data table sheet, again, like the screening data tables, this shows similar information to the dashboard, but in the form of tables. Use this sheet if you would like to see the detailed numbers behind the results. Once you examine the treatment scenario results and determine what treatment scenario may be appropriate for your country, move on to the model summary, which is the last required sheet in the model. In this sheet, which you will notice looks similar to the initial model flow diagram, we can see a summary of the entire model put together. At the top here is the screening approach and the country that you chose earlier. In the yellow box, you are asked to select one of the 5 treatment scenarios. I will select Scenario 3 as an example, which models treatment only being available at select district hospitals. Now, I can follow through the major steps in the screening and treatment process to see the number of women in each step per year. At the bottom, I have a total annual cost estimate for both screening and treatment. Once you have reached the end, it is encouraged to go back to various inputs and adjust the data to see how different inputs will change the results. We have now reached the end of this training video. We hope that you are now comfortable using PATH's Cervical Precancer Planning Tool Excel model. For more information on the model, or if you have any questions, please refer to our other available resources or contact the PATH team.